Yo, hello, we're back with another weekly metagame analysis. This time, it is Christmas, so I just want to say I hope you all have a happy holidays and had like a good time this past week. And yeah, just to get right into it, of course, the San Diego Regional Championships, this is really the last chance that you could possibly have of registering for it. So 6 p.m. Pacific, make sure you try to get your spot. There's not too many spots left. There'll probably be a bit more that open up in the coming week. So do your best to try to get into this first regional championship. The first one's always one of the most major because like not really many people have like a firm grasp on the format. So there will be like a lot of experimentation, a lot of like this trying to find whatever can work and this like messing around really. And that really makes first regionals really the most fun experience you can get. Unfortunately, I will once again won't be able to go to it, you know. But yeah, in general, if you can make it out to San Diego, it's a first regional. It will be streamed on the Pokemon channel, the same usual kind of drift. But yeah, right to talk about the first tournament we're going to talk about, it's actually a Japan tour that was hosted locally in Japan. This offline, the Terra Square Off. Which, if you're just looking at this instantly, there's a lot of really interesting concepts here. Like this is the first like BAXCALIBUR team that we really like see in the week with BAXCALIBUR, Grim, Volk, Amoonguss. You got the Waterform Tauros and the Sableye. There's Floatzel, Pelipper, Rotom. Like there's a lot of interesting concepts here, especially like Giraffe plus like more offensive mons like Rain is something I find very interesting as well. Like they have the Trick Room mode with Skeletors too, but most like fundamentally you can go like Floatzel Pelipper if someone who's like fake out into you. You can switch out your Pelipper, have your Floatzel attack, and this Giraffe will just eat the priority fake out, and this fake out doesn't matter anymore, right? And that's something that's like makes Giraffe pretty interesting, is that it has like a unique niche even on like more offensive teams, and it also has like a unique niche on like creating balanced teams. And I think that's what makes Giraffe like a pretty interesting Pokemon. You can see on the side the other guy just pointed out that where's Murkrow? There's no Murkrow here. We see a lot of interesting Pokemon like Low Kicks, actually. A Pokemon that we've never really seen before too much, but it is with like Gothitelle, BAXCALIBUR, Kingambit, Grim, and Iolave. So it is a pretty strong core around it for sure. But Low Kicks does have like one unique niche, and that is the ability to use First Impression in a way that is never going to be resisted. It is actually a Pokemon that is OU in singles right now, crazy enough. But it is very unique. It is very unique to see it here. We also see a Palafin Rain performing a bit, but this one using Meowscarada, Hydreigon, Golden Go, Amoonguss. I think that's like a pretty correct way of using Rain. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I can't really fault anything about that team, so it's about what you would want to see, right? And I think like the more this is another part where we get some interesting stuff, right? Glamora plus Dondozo. So why would you want to use like Glamora plus Dondozo, right? And I think that's like an easy question, and there's also a pretty easy answer to it too. Like, as you know, Dondozo, even at +2, it's not really going to get a KO, right? But it has the ability to like stall opponents through like just using rest and playing a very slow game. So essentially what Glamora will allow you to do is actually just use Toxic Debris if you get hit in early game. All of a sudden your Dondozo and Tatsugiri have a better stall method. Or if you, let's say you're in a Dondozo mirror and your opposing Dondozo does not have rest, then you're at even more of an advantage because you get the poison and they can't really like use their leftovers to heal it anymore. And there's scenarios like that that make it actually very interesting. And also let's say you're against like Skeletor's, right? Typically the best way for Dondozo to beat Skeletors is to sit in front of it and quick like rest, quick protect, quick like sub. And just basically do nothing into it. But since Skeletor usually runs items like leftovers, you're usually running like unaware, slack off. That's very hard for a Dondozo team to break. And Glamora can do it through like offensively in early game through like Power Gem, through Sludge Bomb if it tries to Terra Fairy or Terra Grass. And if the Skeletors tries to get like a little cute, right? And do too much, it's just gonna get kind of slowed down. And even if Glamora goes down, if you proc your Toxic Debris, you're breaking Skeletors slowly thanks to the toxic spikes anyways, and that's like something that makes it very, very good to actually deal with Skeletors as a threat. Which Skeletors is one of the best counters into Dondozos thanks to the ability Unaware and the ability to terrestrialize into an alternative type, most notably like Fairy and occasionally Grass as well. Both of these typings really just mess up Dondozo completely, and Dondozo just doesn't have a good way to deal with it. So it is pretty cool to see Glamora get some uses in that sense, and this Glamora from them was actually Rocky Helmet 252. And the reason we are able to actually know this is because we actually do have a stream of this tournament. Since it was a local grassroots, we were able to get like a full stream. We'll link it in the description. You see the teams here and some of the matchups, as they actually did go against Dondozo in the first round, so you can already see it. The Glamora scenario came up pretty quickly. It came up pretty quickly for sure. And yeah. Other than that, the other interesting one was the Gomorrah Volcarona team that actually made top 4. And they use like Scarf and DD, a lot of interesting sets. Unfortunately, we don't have like a full rental of that or anything, but they did make finals, so you are able to actually go back and watch some games of them. Can at minimum get a look at their items. Like the interesting things about this one was a Sash Glamora, and the one in top 8 was Rocky Helmet 252 HP. So they both were running like fairly different sets, and also they had like Bulk Up Annihilate. There's a lot of fairly interesting options being chosen by these players. And yeah, you can see the Scarf on the NDD there. But unfortunately that one does not have too much information about it otherwise. But you can check the VOD to try to get a little more. But one of the ones that was actually publicly released, some of the sets, is actually UB Slows. And you may notice a few interesting things here. For one, the Grimsnarl is pretty offensive, and the Sableye is actually the one setting screens. The Volcarona has Leftovers Terra Water. The BAXCALIBUR is Electric Terra Blast. Which is something we haven't really seen, right? Not many people have chose to just go Electric as a Terra typing in general, and you get to see it here, but Ice and Electric is generally just such a powerful offensive coverage, so it kind of makes sense to see it perform at a fairly high level. And also notably, we see the Tauros with the Assault Vest. Water Tauros is something that was very underrated, but really shows up a lot in this tournament this week, and I think that's something that's really cool to see. And the Grim, again, is an offensive set with Fake Out, Spear Break, Crunch, and Taunt. I did actually take the effort to translate some of this. You got the Tauros with the Raging Bull, Wave Cross, Aqua Jet CC, Glaive Wash, Icicle Spear, Terra Blast, BAXCALIBUR, Reflect, Light Screen, Foul Play, Encore, Sableye, Heatwave, Quiver, Giga, Protect, Bulk, and then you have Spore, Pollen Puff, Rage Power, Clear Smog, Mental Herb, Amoonguss, Terra Type, Poison. They did notably say that their terrestrial typings wasn't exactly optimal, as you can just compromise on the Terran tips. Of course, that's like Google translated, but it still gives you the same idea, right? At least in that case. And yeah, the other tournament we had was actually the X9 tournament. And this tournament happened on like last Wednesday. And we had a few interesting results here as well, as we actually have Quaquaval winning its first tournament. And Quaquaval's an interesting Pokemon, as Water Fighting is like actually a very, very good offensive typing in this meta. As you notice, Water Fighting has a unique ability to deal with Hydreigon, and if you can actually just keep Aqua Stepping, keep like Ice Spinner up for a potential Garchomp, you have like CC for the Mouseholes, you have like CC if you get faster than Meowscarada, you can actually deal with it too. So essentially, as long as you're able to like get a turn with Quaquaval, Quaquaval can start being a very, very scary mon. Of course, it is a bit haze prone, but ultimately it's just having, if you can get that speed boost on Quaquaval, it really starts to mess up the whole metagame, right? Because you can just look back here, you just look at all the other teams, right? Quaquaval with a speed boost is very scary for a lot of them. Like this team, Hydreigon and Garchomp, Quaquaval with speed boost kind of melts through everything here except the Azu. And that's a trend you just notice the more you go down with a lot of these teams, is just how potent Quaquaval can actually be as an offensive threat. because of this how ridiculously strong of an offensive typing the water fighting typing is. We actually see an Earthworm team using Quaquaval 2 to potentially get it set up. Kind of curious, is it? Yeah, oh, Spray Bird, okay. And we see Quaquaval Rain. Like, there's a lot of like interesting ways. And then, yeah, Quaquaval versus this team, right? Versus POPUP's team. This Aqua Step, you can deal with basically most of this Pokemon. Annihilate can't really terrestrialize anymore to fire. Like, there's a lot of like little stuff like that that make it like very useful. And this is like the first tournament where we're going to talk about the Kareem's team a fair bit, where it actually shows off Kingambit, Amoonguss, Salazzle, Gallade, Mimikyu, BAXCALIBUR. This is a concept we're actually going to be talking about a fair bit as we go on, so I will avoid talking about it too much here, but this is something you'll see. This is something you'll see. The good old BAXCALIBUR's emergence. And we also had another interesting team in second place, a hard Trick Room team that actually used Frostmoth, which honestly I am very unsure why the player just chose to use Frostmoth on this kind of build. I feel like another Trick Room Pokemon would have been better, like maybe a Torkoal, maybe I don't know, the Garga Knuckle guy, maybe that would help. I feel like there's certainly a better option. I feel like Frostmoth was probably the weakest link of this team. Though it is interesting to see it, right? Because like you saw the VODS set Quiver Dance. Even if your opponent is just walled by it, then I imagine that's when they decide to bring it. Like if you have a lot of special attackers, they just bring the electric Frostmoth and just keep Quiver Dancing over and over again. I guess that could be pretty scary, so it's probably for that. And we also see Terra Flying on Kingambit, which can be a bit annoying to handle. And we see the Psychic Hyper Voice Imprison Trick Room Ferrodraft, which is pretty interesting to have Imprison on this Ferrodraft, considering that Ferrodraft actually like this team actually kind of likes being in Trick Room. So the fact that Scoobar chose to have Imprison is something I find very fascinating, right? Because like a lot of these Pokemon, they're very slow. Like Hariyama's slow, Amoonguss slow, Kingambit's slow, Sylveon's like middling, Ferrodraft is slow. So I would be curious to hear why they ultimately chose to go in Prison. Maybe they were scared of like Trick Room Reversal, right? Because they are that slow. So if a Trick Room Reversal happened, that would have been a bit rough for them. And I can understand that. I can understand that for sure. And yeah, we actually do have their team though. You see, that's a little image of the teams. Thanks to VGC PokePaste. VGC Pastes in general, what really helps makes this like easy for me to gather. And now we see Gung King's top 8 team that shows you use Paris Trap with Palmut. And the cool thing about this, Palmut essentially gives you a second chance at life for your Paris Trap. Though this is not necessarily the most like committal Paris mode necessarily, or really at all. And also interesting, we don't see the dark move on Meowscarada, which I feel like it's not correct. I feel knockoff is pretty good, guy. Knockoff is pretty good. But yeah, in general, this is a very strong team. As this has Gothitelle, yeah, the Paris mode. Though it's very uncommittal to its Paris mode in the sense that like there's only one Pokemon that really exists for the Paris mode, and the other Pokemon don't even have Protect. So the Paris mode is like it's completely this afterthought generally. But if you get into like a Dondozo matchup where it's actually useful, you just oh, I have an Azu. Good luck bringing your Dozo on. Let's go to quick Paris song on you, man. Like, come on. And I think that's really like a lot of why this is. It has like potential use case here. I'll also link the PokePaste, and then actually I'll just link the tweet in the description as well. And you can just go there, get the rental code. You can see it on screen too. I think that, and I'll link the tweet in the description as well with the original source. It's the rental. And then we also have the second place team that we were talking about earlier from Scoobar. And I will actually go to Scoobar's original thread here because I kind of want to this. I kind of want to see what his takes were on this because it's very interesting to see like a team like this get second place. And I do think Frostmoth was a Pokemon that was overall pretty underrated in general, right? Because like there's a lot of special Pokemon in the metagame. So if you're able to like get rid of Frostmoth's bad typing and then start going for like Quiver Dances, and it becomes like very scary very fast. And I do think that's a case where Electric Terra is actually not too bad. Because again, the Ice Electric coverage is like pretty good, right? Did he say anything else? No, not really. Okay. I got baited by VGC Paste. But yeah, in general, a very interesting tournament. I don't think there's anything else that I really want to like talk about on the X9 one, and we still have like a lot of tours to go as well. We also see Mr. Penguins with the Hydreigon, Garchomp, Velocities, Size Spam, the Torkoal Ringaroo kind of Trick Room shell that decommits with like Meowscarada's Trick Room on. Some interesting stuff for sure. But yeah, on to the next tournament. We actually have Warrior Gym Season 1 VGC. This is a tournament hosted by German TOs, and this has some interesting information. It has some interesting information for sure. Unfortunately, this was one that I hadn't heard of, so I didn't really get to play or didn't really get to see too much about it. But we do once again see the old BAXCALIBUR. This BAXCALIBUR team is very interesting as well, because we see actually Talonflame plus Bax plus Golden Go, and you once again see the Water Tauros. And Water Tauros has really just come up a lot on these tournaments, and we actually see Drill Run as a move for Water Tauros instead of like a Wave Crash, which is very interesting. And is also like pretty strong too, as Wave Crash is a powerful move. And you see Amoonguss and Umbreon actually coming back again. Umbreon's a Pokemon that is actually like generally like pretty good because it's so bulky and it can just sit on the field and just act as a win con and like negate opponents' win cons. Like it is a very like annoying Pokemon to deal with, as like if you don't have a way to hit it super effectively, you are not KOing the Umbreon. And I imagine it had some value in that sense on this team. We also see Covert Cloak on Talon. Talon is probably like one of the few mons that you can expect to still see Covert Cloak even in an open shield format. Because just having the ability to like say, hey, you can't fake me out, bro. As a mon that is going to lose its Gale Wings after being faked out, that's pretty valuable. And the only other team I really want to cover here is actually the team that won, and that was from Ike. Ike is a Japanese VGC player and had a very strong team, as he actually uses Dragapult with Terra Dragon Darts. You also see the Gardevoir with Moonblast Psychic, Imprison Trick Room, the Talonflame with Life Orb, Brave Bird Orb with Tail and Protect. And this is like why I brought up the Covert Cloak in part, because like another part to why I bring up the Covert Cloak on that last team, right, is because like that's one way to get around Fake Out, and then the winning team actually chose another way, and simply this using Protect. And Life Orb actually allows you to get a guaranteed KO on opposing Golden Go with Flare Blitz. So that was a very quick way for them to get a lot of power out. In general, their team is very offensive, right? You have the Choice Band Dragapult, you have the Choice Specs Golden Go, you have a lot of like offensive breakers. So if you're able to just like get your tailwind up, get the offense going, it's pretty hard to actually deal with. You also have Mousehold. Mousehold as an offensive Pokemon is a bit underrated because like you just pop bomb. Like Mousehold is probably like one of the weirder Pokemon in general. Cause like, oh, it's so powerful, but its powerfulness has some like volatility, but it's made up by having like two ghost types that can potentially kill opposing ghost types that try to get around Mousehold. You have the Life Orb, Flare Blitz to KO Golden Go, the upon Mousehold can't hit. Another good thing about having like Talonflame specifically here is it's able to actually KO Amoonguss, which is a mon that typically carries Rocky Helmet that is very annoying for Mousehold. So there's that as well. And you also have the Imprisoned Trick Room on the Gardevoir, which is very cool for sure. I do wonder if maybe Fair Draft would be better there, but ultimately this one's taking advantage of that fairy typing. And then finally you got the Clear Amulet on the Garchomp, which is a very simple thing that's avoid Intimidate. Like, might as well, right? You might as well, because like a lot of the offensive items are already used. So that's just an easy one. That it's kind of like an offensive item because like you're not going to get intimidated, so you're always going to have consistent damage, and you just get a 3-attack Garchomp. And Garchomp's still a very powerful Pokemon. And the last like major tournament that we're going to talk about today is actually the one that is won by Animist and Monkey VGC, and why I said the Kareem team that we showed earlier was going to be very important later. Because we actually see the same kind of concept, but instead of the Glade, we actually see the two of the Water Tauroses. I really like believe that was this correct call as well. This is the power of Water Tauros being very underrated, because it's still this like Intimidate mod, has good stats similar to Arcanine, and water fighting typing being very valuable. And we really see this a lot. We see like Hayden McTavish actually running at tier 2 in 6th place. A very different variant. We get the Expert Belt here, the Power Trick knockoff Sucker Punch. Unfortunately, the pace for these aren't really released right now, but we can at least like go over the move pools a bit. Because we got Animus with the Terra Water, got the Rocky Helmet Dark, Amoonguss, you got the Sash, the Superior Damage, Salazzle with the Taunt, and you have Mimikyu with Life Orb, 3 attack, Protect. And I think this is something pretty interesting. I actually did want to run like offensive Mimikyu as well, but it always feels like Mimikyu just does a little too little damage, you know? But it is still cool to see it nonetheless, because like you have the Disguise, you have a very good offensive typing for this meta, so seeing it used like that is actually pretty cool. And you also see the Figgy Berry, Swords Dance, BAXCALIBUR as well, with Glaive Rush, and you just have Ice Shard as your offensive move. Because notably after one Swords Dance, for example, you can actually just Ice Shard and KO a Murkrow, and you can have like a lot of offensive presence into Automons with Ice Shard. Like Garchomp, you're just KOing outright. If you get like Swords Dance boost up, then you're KOing mons that are neutral, like Hydreigon. It's very interesting to see it just be like the only coverage to it though. And we also see Paldea Tauros Water with the ability to change into fire typing, which is something we actually saw with Rotom forms in the meta before this one, where we had like all the ruined Pokemon free and we didn't know what the metagame was yet in the Paradox Mons, where Rotom forms would actually change into a different Rotom form typing. Like Rotom Wash would change to Rotom Heat by using Terra Fire and have this smaller overheat, or Rotom Heat would change to the water typing, so it would have the ability to use Terra Blast as consistent water damage. We're actually seeing that concept here with Paldea Tauros Water, and I think that's a very interesting way of using it, as you're able to go from Water Tauros and you just go into Fire Tauros, you know, to a sense. Though of course, like, it won't change for like Raging Bull. It unfortunately does not work like Oricorio does. But you still can just use Terra Blast and change it to Fire, and Fire is just such a good defensive typing anyways, so it works out very perfectly. And I don't believe there are any differences to go over between the team, but we'll look at it anyways. The placement's different, but not much else. Nice. Yeah, congrats to Animus and them for winning this tournament. It was a very cool team to see, and we actually saw it over like the last week as well, where this team was like creeping up. It was in top cut, it didn't quite get there, but now it really got there, you know, and this had multiple people get this finishing the job for it. And we can go over Lunar's team now. This Sylveon, Hydreigon, Meowscarada, Arcanine, Amoonguss, Wash Rotom. Pretty simplistic team in a sense, but you also have the ability to like have a little Trick Room mode, you have a little Tailwind mode. It's a nice little respectable balanced team that actually uses CB Arcanine with E-Speed. It's pretty cute. You have the potential power. You don't have like the reliability of like, or power of like a normal Dragonite, for example, but you do have like this kind of this aggro that Arcanine, the utility that Arcanine has is to Intimidate and the great typing of Fire, so you don't even need to Terastallize it all the time, but you always have the option to just go full E-Killer and go E-Speed and just get KOs thanks to Choice Band. So it does a lot of damage, has a lot of ways to like clean up. You also see the Rotom Wash with Volt Switch, Terra Blast, Terra Fire, Sylveon. The Steel Hydreigon with Safety Goggles, I imagine, is probably very bulky invested. And the Trick Room Meowscarada, the Amoonguss with the Rocky Helm. And Rocky Helm Amoonguss is something that you'll see a lot, just to make Mousehold's day very annoying. And other than that, we see a Gallade Side Spam team. Pretty cool from Xehanors. Psycho Cut, Sacred Aqua Cutter, and actually Scope Lens, which is a pretty cool thing since Gallade has a lot of like high crit chance moves. If you can actually get a crit plus sharpness, and since he has Side Spam as well, like the amount of damage Psycho Cut can actually potentially do for him is kind of ridiculous to think about. And it's very cool to see Gallade actually use like Scope Lens and play offensive like that. I think that's a set that is a bit underrated, is the ability to use scopes, play it like Cart, you know. Like, it's not nearly as fast as Kartana, so it's not able to like use it as well as Kartana could in like VGC 17. But it's still like this one that crits a lot, that has sharpness, that has a lot of potential offensive power. And sharpness is a ridiculous ability with a 1.5 times boost, so if you get that plus a crit, it's kind of insane. Yeah, we also see Bread. I do want to talk about Bread's team just a little bit, because like Bread has actually been like playing a lot of tournaments and consistently getting top 8, though ultimately not finishing the job. Though, that said, it kind of like speaks to like, hey, this is a pretty consistent team. Even if it's not winning at the end of the day, it's still able to like get a lot of top cuts, and it's using a bulk up Bitter Blade Jousting Terra Blast. It's kind of similar to like a base concept that we saw from like the Gahaku team, but it takes it a bit better, I think, because you have like more offense to it with the Meowscarada. You have the Trick Room Reversal and Gengar with the Haze. You also have the offensive kind of Tailwind support Hydreigon, which I do wonder if Life Orb is actually optimal there, but yeah, you have the bulk up plus Clear Amulet, Ceruledge that can this Bitter Blade get its health back. You have the Grim with the Parting Shot screens to be annoying too. Like, I think that's a very scary Pokemon that it should probably come up more than it has. Ceruledge has the ability to just, like, heal, get damage off, and this be, like, very potent. But yeah, again, unfortunately, we don't have any real of the winners teams, but we do actually have the teams from the third place Lunar, and we have the fourth place James Sawyer, who we'll link in the description as well, and we can actually just show off some of the rentals here. This one, notably, just having a Fisher Dondozo, which if you don't know, Fisher Dondozo actually topped the ladder because it's a tech that makes the Dondozo mirror specifically very annoying, because it's very hard to actually KO a Dondozo with a Dondozo, right? Because they both have Unaware. So essentially, you just have Fisher, and it just wins the mirror if you hit 1 of 8 times. And you're going to be able to fire off a lot because, again, Dondozo can't really hit you either, so it's just a little checkmate for the mirror. It's not good for much else, but it shows some like funny capability. And we actually saw a team that used Storm Drain Tatsuya instead of Commander and only had Dondozo to win against like opposing Dondozo, which was pretty funny. Though I don't think most people will ever be that committed to it. And there is a lot of like notable inconsistency. It's still a 30% accurate move. Even if you fire it off a lot, you still may never hit it. But the fact that you are able to fire it off a lot into opposing Dondozo matchups is what makes it work. And we also see the kind of sand mode as well. Very committed to it with Garchomp. Notably not running Garchomp instead of like the Choice Scarf Final Gambit Annihilate that was on this team that a lot of the Italian players were using originally. And not too much else to say. And yeah, we see here we get to Lunar's team as well. Lunar also streamed their run, and we'll link that in the description as well. Finals mirror match was not streamed, yeah. Yeah, there's Lunar's team. They plan to stream more, give them a follow, check them out, all that. And we get the rental here too. I'll have that all this in the description as well as usual. Like, even if we don't have like all the information, I mean, all the information that we like compile through this and like all the information I go through, I'll try to like link it so you can like look through it yourself. You can look through like VODs and stuff. You can look through all the stuff we had. Unfortunately, we don't have many VODs from this weekend outside of the Japan tour. This is why it took like a lot more time to like talk about the Japan tour, right? But overall, it's still pretty cool to see this team do like pretty well. Congrats to Lunar. I believe they're coming back to VGC too, because I don't remember seeing them during like the Sword and Shield era. But they're a very like long-term player, of course. So like, like a very, very long-term player and like very, very good at the game. So they're definitely worth a follow for sure. And the last tournament we're really going to be talking about is actually the EV Cup. This is a smaller tournament, but you know, it's worth talking about anyways, right? 23 players. If there's anything potentially interesting. I think the most notable thing is actually like the Hariyama plus like Armorogue and having a Trick Room mode is pretty cool. We see Bread again, and that's why I wanted to cover the Bread team earlier. They did a good job to perform and actually get top 8, and we actually see Glamora again as well, this time on like Murkrow offense. We see a Rain team with a Hatterene. What? Okay. Interesting. And we ultimately see the winner, Paul JSpear. And this is another tournament series that I actually didn't know about either, so that's pretty cool too. And yeah, this was Paul's team. You have the offense of Azu, the screens, you have the Black Grasses, King Gambit, the Citrus Berry Skeleturge. Interesting. I personally kind of feel like going Protect is probably worth it over Terra Blast, but it is interesting to see Skeleturge actually elect to use Terra Blast. I don't think that's very typical to see that mon ever run Terra Blast. I feel like Leftovers protect Slack Off Shuttle Torch Song, and if it's not protect, then having like Will-O-Wisp is what I expect. So it's interesting to see it actually choose to use Terra Blast, because I never really favor that as an option personally. But yeah, congrats to you, Paul, for winning that tournament. And I think that's really the last tournament that we have to cover this weekend. Over this weekend, I hope you all had like a Merry Christmas, and again, like thank you guys for watching as well. I do. It's regretful that we weren't able to get this out on like Monday, but you know, it's how it be sometimes. It's how it be sometimes, right? And it's also kind of regretful that we don't have like a pace of like any of the teams that won this week. But that's how it'll be sometimes as well. We are pretty close to the ladder reset, so I will do another video covering like a lot of information that we get from the ladder reset. Because if you don't know, anytime the ladder resets at the end of the month, there's a lot of teams that get released, like a lot. So if you want to see like a video on like that, all the like ladder teams, and like see the kind of reset for it, like just let me know in the comments and I can actually get that done, right? Because I'll tell you about there's so many teams that will be released from that. And also as like some closing starts, right? Liberty Note, kind of Japanese website, actually has done some more reports. They have some rental teams here too. And then there's some pretty interesting stuff to look at in general. So we'll just be looking at it a little bit. And if you guys want some more potential rentals, it's a pretty good place to go. Pretty good place to go. As a potential option. And yeah, why I brought this up though is notably the LCS tournament that happened last week. There's more teams from that actually have been released. Like we see the Vaporeon team. I didn't even know there was a Vaporeon team because they only showed top 8 before. And also like a Dendozo Tatsugiri team with Weakness Policy King Gambit and Volk, and Terra Rock Volk for that matter. So there's like some interesting teams. This was all I do have to say like specifically that this was few weeks ago, so you know we're not covering the same week anymore, but we are covering like some reports. Like you also, I will say the HP attack, if you want to like actually translate this, the HP is still like the same order, and you just go through, right? Like H is health, A is attack, B is defense, the C is special attack, D is defense, spadef, and then speed is speed. So you can get through like that. And if you want to use like some more advice for me, if you want to like figure out the moves right, and this is what we do like every week, we host these little videos, and what I did ultimately for Slow's team earlier too is just look up Pokemon moves in other languages, use the Bulbapedia thing, and then you can just like go here and you're just like, ooh, what move is this? I'm pretty, what move? It's a great mystery. It's probably the Dragon Claw. Cool. And you can do that. And that's like a good way to just potentially get Japan teams, right? And I think that's really the last thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. This is to help you guys, right? Because you just go to Liberty Note. We'll have this website linked as well. You can potentially get a lot of like Japan teams. And of course, like, that's not the only good place. You go to Victory Road 2, the US little site. And there's a lot of resources like that in general should be taken advantage of. To the best of your abilities, And yeah, that's it for today. Later. And Merry late Christmas.